You know, there's something about the back roads of Ireland that just hits different at night. Maybe it's the centuries of folklore woven into every stone wall and hedgerow, or maybe it's the way the mist rolls in from the Atlantic, making even familiar landscapes feel otherworldly. Whatever it is, the stories that come out of these remote corners of Europe have a way of staying with you long after you've heard them. I'm Marco, just an Italian-American guy who can't get enough of Europe's darker side. The stories that don't make it into the travel guides, the ones locals still whisper about over pints in old pubs. Today, I want to share something that's been circulating around County Mayo for decades, a phenomenon so consistent, so frequently reported, that even the skeptics have started to pay attention. This isn't some ancient legend passed down through generations. This is happening now, on a road that still exists, to people who are very much alive and very much willing to talk about what they've experienced. And before we dive in, I need you to understand something. The road I'm about to describe, you can drive it yourself if you want. It's real. It's there. And according to dozens of witnesses over the years, so is she. The road in question is a narrow stretch of the N59, specifically the section that winds through the countryside between Westport and Leonane. If you've ever driven through rural Ireland, you know what I'm talking about. Single-track roads with passing places, high hedgerows on either side that block out the sky, and that particular quality of darkness that only exists in places far from city lights. It's beautiful during the day, the kind of landscape that makes you understand why Ireland is called the Emerald Isle. Rolling green hills, stone walls that have stood for centuries, sheep dotting the fields, and in the distance, the dark shapes of mountains against the sky. But at night, especially in winter, it's a different world entirely. The kind of place where your headlights seem to barely penetrate the darkness, where the road ahead feels like it could go on forever or simply end without warning. This is where she appears, the woman on the road. And here's what makes this story different from your typical hitchhiker ghost tale. We're not talking about isolated incidents spread out over decades. We're talking about multiple, consistent sightings, sometimes several times a month, all describing the same woman in remarkably similar detail. Let me start with the first documented account I could find, though locals insist the sightings go back much further. This one happened in November 2003 to a man named Patrick O'Malley. Patrick was a truck driver, had been for over 20 years, driving that stretch of road countless times. He knew it like the back of his hand, every turn, every dip, every treacherous spot where the road narrowed to barely one lane. It was around 11 at night. Typical Irish weather, that fine mist that's not quite rain but soaks you through if you're outside long enough. Patrick was heading back to Westport after a delivery in Galway, tired but alert, the way you are after years of night driving. The radio was playing something forgettable, traditional music maybe, and he was thinking about the pint he'd have when he got home. That's when his headlights caught something ahead. A figure, standing on the side of the road, right at the edge where the pavement meets the grass. Patrick slowed down, the way you do when you see someone on a dark road late at night. As he got closer, he could see it was a woman, young, maybe in her 20s, wearing what looked like a white or cream-colored dress. Not a coat, which struck him as odd given the weather and the temperature. Just this thin dress, her dark hair hanging loose around her shoulders. She had her arm out, thumb up, the universal sign for hitchhiking. And here's where Patrick's account gets interesting. He told me later, when I tracked him down for this story, that his first thought wasn't fear or suspicion. It was concern. What was this girl doing out here alone, dressed like that, in this weather? Was she in trouble? Had there been an accident? He pulled over, the truck's brakes hissing in the quiet night. Through his window, he could see her more clearly now. She was young, pale, with dark eyes that seemed to catch the light from his cab. And she was smiling. Not a big smile. Just a small, polite expression. The kind you give to a stranger you're about to ask a favor of. Patrick rolled down his window. "Are you all right, love? Do you need help?" She didn't answer immediately. Just kept that small smile, her eyes locked on his. Then she spoke, her voice soft, almost melodic, with that distinctive West of Ireland accent. "I need to get home. Can you help me?" Now Patrick was a father of 3 daughters. His instinct was to help, but something made him hesitate. He couldn't put his finger on it exactly. Maybe it was the way she didn't seem cold despite the weather. Maybe it was how she didn't look wet, even though the mist had been falling for hours. Or maybe it was something in her eyes. Something that didn't quite match that polite smile. "Where's home?" he asked, his hand already reaching for the lock on the passenger door, though he wasn't sure why. She tilted her head slightly, that smile never changing. "Just up the road. Not far. You'll know it when you see it." Patrick felt a chill run down his spine. Not from the cold air coming through the window, but from something else. Something primal. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman's smile faltered for just a second. In that moment, Patrick said. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Not into something monstrous like you'd see in a horror film. But there was something wrong, something off. Like looking at a photograph that's been slightly distorted. The proportions weren't quite right. The features didn't quite align the way a human face should. "I need to get home," she repeated. And this time her voice wasn't soft. It was flat, emotionless, like a recording played back on old equipment. Patrick didn't think. He just acted. He hit the gas, his truck lurching forward, wheels spinning briefly on the wet pavement before catching. In his side mirror, he saw her standing there, still smiling that same small smile, watching him drive away. And here's the part that still gives him nightmares. As he watched, she began to walk. Not toward him, not away. Just walking in place, her feet moving but her body staying perfectly still, like a glitch in reality. Patrick didn't stop driving until he reached Westport, went straight to the pub despite the hour, and told his story to anyone who would listen. Most people assumed he'd had a bit too much to drink before the drive. Or maybe he'd fallen asleep at the wheel and dreamed the whole thing. But then other stories started coming out. People who'd seen the same woman on the same stretch of road. 3 months later, in February 2004, a young couple named Sean and Mairead were driving back from a wedding in Clifton. It was late, around midnight, and they were both sober, Sean having been the designated driver for the evening. They were laughing about something, some joke from the reception, when Mairead suddenly grabbed Sean's arm. "Stop! There's someone on the road!" Sean hit the brakes, heart pounding, thinking someone had wandered into the road, that he was about to hit them. But when they looked, there she was, standing on the side wearing that same white dress, arm out, thumb up. Mairead was already reaching for her phone. "We need to call someone. She looks freezing." But Sean had heard Patrick's story. Half the county had by then, though most dismissed it as drunken nonsense. He'd laughed about it himself at the time. But now, looking at this woman standing in the cold in nothing but a thin dress, he felt that same primal unease Patrick had described. "Don't," he said, putting his hand on Mairead's. "Just don't. Sean, we can't just leave her." The woman began to walk toward their car, not hurrying, just walking at a steady pace, that same small smile on her face. And that's when they both noticed it. Her feet weren't quite touching the ground, not floating exactly. More like there was a fraction of an inch between her shoes and the pavement, too small to see clearly, but enough to create this unsettling effect, like watching a video with the frame slightly out of sync. "Drive," Mairead whispered. "Drive now." Sean drove. In the rearview mirror, he saw the woman stop in the middle of the road, still smiling, watching them go. When he looked back a second later, the road was empty. They reported it to the Gardaí the next morning, giving the location as precisely as they could. The officers took the report seriously. sent a patrol car out to check the area. They found nothing. No sign of anyone. No evidence that anyone had been standing there at all. But they also found no houses, no driveways, no reason for anyone to be on that stretch of road at midnight. The sightings continued, not constantly, but regularly enough that the pattern became impossible to ignore. A taxi driver in June 2004 saw her and, despite knowing the stories by then, stopped to offer help. He said she got close enough to his car that he could see her face clearly through the window. Young, pretty, but with eyes that were just black. No color, no white, just darkness. He locked his doors and drove away, listening to her knock on his window as he accelerated. In September of the same year, 3 separate drivers reported seeing her on 3 consecutive nights, always in roughly the same location, always wearing the same dress, always with that same patient smile and outstretched thumb. The local newspaper ran a story about it in October, treating it half as human interest, half as entertainment. They interviewed witnesses, collected descriptions, tried to find some logical explanation. Maybe it was someone pulling an elaborate prank. Maybe it was different people, and the stories had gotten muddled together. Maybe it was mass hysteria, fueled by one person's story growing into legend. But the descriptions were too consistent. Every witness mentioned the white or cream dress, the dark hair, the pale skin, the calm smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. And most unsettling of all, multiple witnesses mentioned that same detail, the sense that something was wrong with her proportions, with the way she moved, with the way she seemed to exist slightly out of sync with the world around her. I spoke to Father Declan Murphy, the priest from the local parish, who's been serving that community for over 30 years. He's a practical man, not given to flights of fancy. But when I brought up the woman on the N59, his expression darkened. "I've blessed that stretch of road 3 times, he told me, at the request of parishioners who've seen her. I don't know what she is or what she wants, but I know evil when I sense it. And there's something fundamentally wrong about that place." He told me that the road had been built in the 1960s, cutting through what had been open countryside. Before that, there was an older track, barely more than a dirt path, that had been used for centuries. According to local records, that older path had a reputation even then. Travelers avoided it at night. Stories circulated about lights in the fields, about voices calling from the darkness, about people who walked that path and never arrived at their destination. When the new road was built, the construction crew reported strange occurrences. Tools that would go missing and reappear in impossible places. Equipment malfunctions that couldn't be explained. And on several occasions, workers reported seeing a woman in old-fashioned clothing watching them from the fields. Always at a distance, always just at the edge of visibility. One worker, a man named Tom Brennan, told his supervisor that he'd seen the woman up close one evening as he was packing up. She'd approached him and asked for help getting home. Tom, being a gentleman, asked where home was. The woman pointed toward the empty fields and said, "There, where the house used to be." Tom looked where she was pointing. There was nothing there but grass and stone walls. When he turned back to say so, she was gone. He quit the next day and never returned to the site. The road was completed despite these incidents, and for years it was just another country road. The stories from the construction period faded, became the kind of tale old-timers would share over drinks, but no one really believed. Until 2003, when Patrick O'Malley saw her. And then the floodgates opened, as if his sighting had somehow made her visible again, had given her permission to be seen. The most detailed account I've found comes from 2012, from a woman named Catherine O'Brien. Catherine is a teacher, rational, educated, not someone prone to believing in ghosts. She was driving home from Cork after visiting her sister, running later than she'd planned. It was around midnight when she reached that stretch of the N59. Catherine saw the woman standing on the side of the road and immediately felt uneasy. She'd heard the stories, like everyone in the area had, but had always dismissed them. Seeing her in person, though, was different. She described it as feeling like the temperature in the car dropped 10 degrees the moment the woman came into view. Unlike the others, Catherine didn't stop. She kept driving, but she slowed down enough to get a good look. The woman was young, yes, wearing that white dress. But Catherine noticed details others hadn't mentioned. The dress wasn't quite white, she said. It was stained, brownish marks along the hem and lower portion, like mud or something else. And the woman's feet. Catherine could see her feet clearly in her headlights. They were bare and dirty, as if she'd been walking for miles. But most disturbing of all, Catherine said, was the woman's mouth. She was smiling, yes, but the smile was wrong. Too wide, stretched beyond what a human mouth should be capable of, showing too many teeth, creating an expression that was trying to be friendly, but came across as a grotesque mockery of human emotion. Catherine sped up, but as she passed, she glanced in her rearview mirror. The woman was turning to watch her go, that impossible smile never changing. And then, just for a second, Catherine said she saw the woman's reflection multiply in the mirror. Not one figure, but dozens, stretching back along the road like an endless repetition, each one identical, each one smiling that same terrible smile. Catherine had a panic attack when she got home, called her sister in Cork, who drove all the way back to Mayo to stay with her. She took a week off work, and she's never driven that road again, takes the longer route around through Ballinrobe now, even though it adds 30 minutes to her journey. In Irish folklore, there's a tradition of Bean Sea, the banshee, a female spirit whose appearance foretells death. But this isn't quite that. Banshees wail, they keen, they announce coming tragedy. This woman is something else. She doesn't warn. She doesn't wail. She just waits. Patient, persistent, always there on nights when the mist rolls in and the darkness feels thicker than usual. Some locals believe she's the ghost of a woman who was murdered on that road, or on the old path that existed before it. There are records from the 1890s of a young woman named Brigid who went missing from a nearby village. She'd been walking home from a dance one night and never arrived. Her body was never found, but her shawl, white with embroidered flowers, was discovered caught on a hedge near where the current road runs. Others think she's older than that, much older, connected to something that existed on that land before Christianity came to Ireland, before the roads were built, before there were names for the hills and valleys. Something that's been there so long it's become part of the landscape itself, wearing the form of a young woman the way you'd wear a mask, using it to lure the curious, the helpful, the unwary. What makes this phenomenon particularly unnerving is its consistency. We're not talking about vague shadows or ambiguous experiences that could be explained away. We're talking about clear, detailed sightings, often by multiple witnesses, sometimes on the same night. And the woman herself never changes. Same dress, same hair, same smile, as if she's frozen in that moment, whatever moment created her, unable to move forward, unable to let go. The Gardaí have had to address the situation officially more than once. There have been so many reports that they can't simply dismiss them all as hoaxes or misidentifications. They've investigated, checked for anyone who might be playing a prank, looked into whether someone with mental health issues might be wandering that road at night. They've found nothing. No evidence of a real person, but also no evidence that rules out the phenomenon entirely. In 2015, they even set up cameras along that stretch of road for a month, hidden in hedgerows and mounted on poles, trying to capture footage of either the woman or whoever might be behind the sightings. The cameras caught cars passing, the occasional fox or badger, but nothing else. Until one night in the third week, when several cameras malfunctioned simultaneously, all of them focused on the same section of road. When they were retrieved and examined, each one had the same last frame recorded before the malfunction. A white figure, vague and indistinct, standing right where witnesses had consistently reported seeing the woman. The footage was never released to the public officially, but I've seen screenshots. It's not conclusive, could be explained as a camera glitch or light refraction, but the timing is suspicious. Multiple cameras, all failing at once, all capturing the same anomaly. Local businesses have even started to capitalize on the phenomenon. There's a pub in Westport that has a cocktail named after her, the Woman in White. Tour companies offer Haunted Ireland packages that include a drive along that stretch of road, though never at night, always during the day, when the landscape looks beautiful and harmless and the idea of ghosts seems absurd. But ask anyone who's actually seen her, and you won't hear that dismissive tone. You'll hear fear, genuine and visceral. Patrick O'Malley still won't drive that road at night. Takes the long way around despite the extra time. Catherine O'Brien moved to Dublin shortly after her encounter, needed to put distance between herself and that stretch of pavement. Sean and Mered, the couple from the wedding, eventually got married themselves, but they've never driven through Mayo together since that night. The most recent sighting I know of happened just last November 2023. A group of university students from Dublin, doing some kind of paranormal investigation project, deliberately drove that road at night with cameras rolling. They'd done their research, knew the stories, thought they were prepared. Around midnight, their footage shows them joking, laughing, talking about how nothing was happening. Then suddenly, one of them shouts, "Stop! Stop the car!" There she was, in their headlights. White dress, dark hair, that same patient smile. But this time, something was different. This time when they stopped, she began to walk toward the car. Not quickly, not slowly, just a steady, inevitable approach. And as she got closer, the camera started to malfunction. The image broke up, static filling the frame, audio cutting in and out. The last clear image before they sped away shows her standing right in front of the car, close enough that they should have been able to see every detail of her face. But the image is distorted, pixelated, like the camera itself couldn't process what it was seeing, like reality was rejecting her presence. When the footage clears a few seconds later, they're already half a mile down the road, all of them pale and shaken, no one speaking, just the sound of heavy breathing and the engine. They posted the video online, then took it down a few days later. Said they were getting threatening messages, though they never specified who from or what the threats said. One of the students, a girl named Sarah, told me in a private message that they'd all been having nightmares since that night. The same nightmare, all four of them, where they're driving on an endless dark road and no matter how fast they go, they can't reach the end. And in the rearview mirror, she's always there, sitting in the back seat, smiling. So what is she? That's the question everyone asks, and nobody has a satisfying answer. A ghost, maybe, trapped in an endless loop of seeking help that never comes, trying to get to a home that no longer exists. Or something older. Something that predates our modern understanding of death and spirits. A piece of the land itself that's learned to wear a human shape. Some nights, locals say, if you drive that road and really pay attention, you can feel it. A weight in the air. A thickness to the darkness that goes beyond simple absence of light. The sense that you're being watched from the fields on either side. That something is keeping pace with your car just out of sight. Waiting for you to stop. To show weakness. To offer the help it's been asking for all these decades. And maybe that's what's most frightening about the woman on the N59. Not that she might be a ghost or a demon or some other supernatural entity, but that she might be patient. That she's been asking the same question, making the same gesture, showing the same smile for decades, maybe centuries, and she's willing to wait. to keep appearing night after night, year after year, until someone finally stops, rolls down their window, and says yes. The road is still there. You can drive it today if you want. In daylight, it's beautiful. One of those quintessential Irish country roads that photographers love, that tourists seek out for their Instagram feeds. But ask the locals, really ask them, and you'll get a different story. You'll get directions for the long way around. You'll get warnings about making sure your petrol tank is full before you set out, so you never have to stop on that particular stretch of pavement. You'll get that look, that recognition that comes from living alongside something inexplicable for so long that it's become a simple fact of life. The woman on the N59 is real. As real as anything can be when it exists in that space between explanation and acceptance. Real enough that people change their routes to avoid her. Real enough that grown men who've driven those roads for decades still feel their hands shake when they talk about seeing her. Real enough that she's become part of the landscape, as permanent as the stone walls and as old as the hills. Next time you're in Ireland, driving those beautiful back roads as the sun goes down and the mist begins to rise, pay attention. Watch the sides of the road. And if you see a young woman in a white dress, thumb out that patient smile on her face. Do yourself a favor. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Don't even look too closely. Just keep driving. Keep your eyes on the road ahead. And be grateful that whatever she's looking for, whatever home she's trying to reach, isn't yours. Because some journeys are meant to stay unfinished. Some questions are better left unanswered. And some offers of help, no matter how innocent they seem, are really invitations to something much darker. The woman on the N59 is still there, still waiting, still smiling, and she's got all the time in the world.